Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're looking at something that is literally keeping you alive right this very second: the architectures of biological energy acquisition. We're going to explore the concept of biological nutrition, but not just as a daily habit like eating lunch. We're looking at it as this grand, overarching architectural blueprint that powers absolutely all life on Earth.
We've got a great step-by-step blueprint for today. We'll start with the foundational definition of nutrition. Then we'll check out the independent builders of the world, followed by the dependent users, which, spoiler alert, includes us. We're also going to unpack the multi-stage internal lab that powers our bodies, look at some really wild specialized strategies out in nature, and finally, zoom out to the global energy current that connects it all together.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1. What exactly is biological nutrition?
To really get this, we need to completely shift how we think about the biosphere. I want you to imagine the entire Earth as this massive, interconnected energy grid. And in this system, every single living organism falls into one of two major camps. You're either a builder or you're a user. Now, when we say nutrition, most of us just think about eating a meal, right? But biologically speaking, nutrition is the essential process where organisms acquire and use resources for energy production, physical growth, cellular repair, and just vital life maintenance. It's basically the governing framework for resource management across the entire planet. Without this process, the organizational stability of our ecosystems would just completely collapse. Every single organism has to secure energy, and how they go about doing it entirely dictates their place in the food chain.
And that leads us perfectly into Section 2, autotrophs, the independent builders.
So these are the autotrophs, and what's absolutely wild about these organisms is that they achieve total metabolic independence. They don't need to eat anything organic at all. Instead, they act as self-sufficient builders. They take super simple inorganic substances, stuff like carbon dioxide and water, and internally synthesize their own complex organic food. This amazing capability gives them what ecosystem strategists call synthesis sovereignty. Because they produce their own energy from scratch, they literally establish the baseline for all other life on Earth.
Now, there are two brilliant ways these builders actually construct this energy. The first is photosynthetic synthesis. This is what green plants and algae do. They use the pigment chlorophyll, which is found in their chloroplasts, to trap solar energy. They take carbon dioxide and water, and boom, they turn it into glucose and oxygen. They are quite literally architecting our breathable atmosphere as a byproduct. But then we have chemosynthetic synthesis. What happens if there's no sunlight? Deep underground or in super extreme environments, organisms like resilient nitrifying bacteria get their power entirely from inorganic chemical reactions, like converting ammonia into nitrates. They pull off total self-sufficiency completely in the dark. It's amazing.
So if autotrophs are the independent builders, what does that make the rest of us? Let's get into Section 3, heterotrophs, the dependent users.
Yep, that's us. We are the heterotrophs, and we represent a huge strategic shift from energy synthesis to energy acquisition. Heterotrophs are the users, or the consumers of the biosphere. Since we completely lack the ability to synthesize our own food from simple inorganic matter, we are left with a fundamental dependency on the organic matter generated by others. Basically, to survive, heterotrophs had to evolve highly specialized and sometimes frankly bizarre mechanisms to extract and recycle the nutrients that those autotrophs already built.
Let's zoom in on our specific strategy in Section 4, the Holozoic internal lab. So how exactly do we extract our energy? Well, humans, dogs, and most animals rely on a highly specific heterotrophic strategy known as Holozoic nutrition. I want you to think of your body not just as an organism, but as a highly sophisticated refinement facility. We ingest complex organic matter, biomass, and process it through this high-precision internal laboratory. It's an incredible journey of physical and chemical transformation that turns raw environmental matter into the very cellular fuel keeping you awake right now.
And this whole internal laboratory runs in 5 distinct, highly coordinated stages. First step is ingestion, which is just the physical intake of the raw biomass. Second is digestion. This is the chemical breakdown of those complex substances into simpler, soluble forms that can actually cross over your cellular membranes. Third is absorption, the logistics network that transports these soluble nutrients straight into your bloodstream. Fourth is assimilation, and this is the absolutely critical stage where your cells actually use those nutrients for energy, growth, and structural repair. And finally, we have egestion, which is the systematic removal of any undigested waste that the lab couldn't process.
But here's the catch. This 5-step process, it is not cheap. Operating this internal lab requires a massive energy expenditure that's known as the refinement tax. We literally have to spend calories to locate food, capture it, physically break it down, and chemically refine it. So why pay this tax? Because it's the required strategic trade-off we have to make to get access to the incredibly high-density, complex organic fuel necessary to run advanced animal life.
Of course, our internal lab isn't the only way to get things done. Let's look at Section 5, Specialized Strategies.
Beyond the holozoic method, nature has come up with some pretty alternative heterotrophic models for consumers. We're going to look at saprophytic nutrition, which relies on external decay, parasitic nutrition, which is all about exploitation, and symbiotic nutrition, which is built on complex interspecies cooperation.
Let's talk about saprophytic nutrition first. Imagine if you had an external stomach. Fungi, like mushrooms and bread molds, use this amazing outside-in approach. They secrete powerful digestive enzymes directly out into their environment, right onto dead and decaying organic matter. These enzymes break the matter down externally, and then the fungi simply absorb the resulting nutrients. This is incredibly important because they essentially act as nature's recyclers. They break that organic fuel back down into inorganic components, returning it to the soil to be used by the autotrophic builders all over again. They completely close the architectural loop.
Then we have strategies that are all about interaction. On one side, you have parasitic nutrition. This is an exploitative at-the-host's expense model. Organisms like tapeworms, lice, or the parasitic plant Cuscuta derive their nutrients directly from a living host, which often damages the host in the process. But on the flip side, we have symbiotic nutrition. This is a massive shift from competition to cooperation, a true mutual success model. Lichens are a perfect example here. They form this brilliant partnership between algae and fungi. And hey, even humans rely on this. We have trillions of beneficial bacteria in our intestines helping us break down substances our own internal lab just can't handle. It really proves that mutual survival is often way more resilient than isolation.
Okay, let's zoom all the way back out for our final part. Section 6, the global energy current.
Now that we've mapped out these specific strategies, you can really see the continuous flow of the global energy current. We have the autotrophs, our independent producers, using sunlight and chemicals to build the foundation of life from scratch. And then we have the heterotrophs, the dependent consumers, refining that organic biomass through internal labs, external stomachs, and complex partnerships. The systemic resilience of our entire planet relies completely on this continuous exchange. The builders produce, the users consume, and the recyclers return the raw materials right back to the builders. If the primary producers ever stalled out, the dependent consumer layer would experience a catastrophic cascade failure. We are all inextricably linked.
Which brings us to a final, kind of wild thought experiment based on all these biological architectures. What if humanity could undergo an autotrophic pivot? Think about it. If human survival was completely decoupled from organic consumption, if we could directly harvest solar energy or process minerals ourselves instead of eating crops and livestock, what would happen to human society? So many geopolitical conflicts over arable land, maritime food choke points, and resource scarcity are fundamentally driven by our heterotrophic dependency. If we became self-sufficient builders, would the primary drivers of human conflict simply evaporate? It's a fascinating look at how our baseline biology truly dictates our civilization. Thank you so much for joining me to explore the architectures of biological energy acquisition.